I'm really happy to have a talk with Maxim Shalygin. Maxim, thank you so much for your time talking about this wonderful piece which has been played before but will be played again in November Music, or is played again, for those who are watching this video, is played again in November Music 2021. Wonderful piece, 9 cello players. Please tell us, what was the cooperation and what is special about this piece?
Yeah, that's a couple of years ago I started this similar cycle, and as you may remember, the already chapters with 7 violins, 8 saxophone players, and now it's a turn of 9 cello players. And originally I wanted to do it as a pure 9 cello octet, and then there was a coincidence. We met Rob, and then Rob met Maya, and so on. So they were different talks, and they wanted to cooperate all together, and somehow they convinced me to try to do something about this cooperation as well. And my idea was to use some additional instruments, then they should be next to a normal cello octet, but controlled by the feet of the musicians, because then they can normally play their own stuff and control the pedals. And then it appeared not an easy task for Rob to create these instruments, because I think at the beginning he even didn't understand how difficult it's going to be for him. But then when we get to the point of no return, he had to deliver the stuff, because I already had the music composed for almost not existed instruments. So it was a kind of difficult process of composition from this side, but exciting at the same way.
Yeah, so that's very interesting. First was the idea, which was the idea of your series of pieces for groups of instruments, of groups of the same instruments, like the 2 saxophone quartets piece, for instance. And then the idea became broader, and then you wrote the music, and after that the instruments still had to be built.
Yeah, there was the point of no return when Rob showed me first prototypes of the instruments, and then I understood that there is a potential, some kind of potential in it. So, and then of course he had to double and triple and so on them. Yeah. And it took quite a lot of time for him, so we got, I think, the whole set of the instruments we got on the short of force rehearsal. Yeah. Only when we gathered together. So, but it was interesting that in the middle of the piece, because I was going to his studio all the time to check the sounds and to understand what I can do with that, what not, to experiment there. And at the certain point, I also understood in the piece that, for instance, the dynamic change of the instrument is not as huge as I was thinking it will be. So, for instance, the piano sound and the forte sound, the difference is not so big. Okay. And I already composed one moment which actually it consists a lot of crescendo and diminuendo on this instrument. And when we started to play it all through, I unfortunately had to just cut this 5 minutes of music from there, because there was a huge drop in dynamic and the energy. So there was these kind of things which were unexpectedly didn't work, but a lot of things worked like a plant. But in some moments I kind of made, for instance, if the Rob's instrument is playing there, this chord instrument, I double it sometimes when I want an important harmony to be heard, I double it with the octet. So we make sure that this harmony is there. Yeah. If something happens with the instrument and so on, so this kind of thing. So I have to rethink a little bit more in a more practical way how to compose for this instrument.
Yeah, yeah. Just to make things clear, right? There's 9 cello players, 9 cellos, and there's 25 instruments which were built by Rob, 24 instruments which are, how do you say, played on by the 8 cello players of the Cello Octet. Mm-hmm. And 1 instrument which is different from the other 24, which is played by Maya Fridman. And those Rob van den Broek instruments are all played by foot pedals. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now cello-like instruments. The 24 instruments are cello-like. Strings which are bowed with a turning thing.
Yeah, more or less like cello-like.
Yeah. Are they just producing one tone, like a sort of a drone underneath?
No, there are three different types of instruments of the 24. There is one which is producing one tone, low, like double bass tone, something like this. And another type is a chord instrument which is higher, and it can produce four tones at the same time, but always same tones, so you cannot really change them. So you basically need, I had to choose the scale for every instrument, and it stays for the whole piece. And another one is a rolling instrument, which is kind of pizzicato instruments, and it rolls, and the string touches the plectrum. Okay. And there are different strings, like different amounts of strings, from 7 till, I don't remember, 11, I think, and the different instruments, and they can produce quite a huge speed in there, and also going super slow and super fast. But this is more like pizzicato sound. Yeah. And the 25th instrument is the instrument, kind of a box, well, it's the dodecaeder in this case, but with the strings instead of walls, and there is a ping pong ball inside. It jumps on this. I think there are like 150 something strings. Okay.
And the ping pong ball jumps inside the box.
And on the strings, and makes a sound there. Yeah,
a sound which is coincidental, which is,
it is coincidental. Predict. Yes, it's one thing in the piece which is and the tuning there is random at all. Yeah. So it's complete chaos.
Yeah, it's complete chaos. But you have composed something which sort of boxes in the chaos.
Yes, that's true. Because usually I don't like in my music the kind of random things. But recently in some places, especially in similar cycle, I have some little moments when I allow it to be something which is a bit random. But of course in controlled frame, so I know what kind of effect it will, emotional effect, what it will bring into the piece approximately. Yeah. So this is very important for me, because otherwise it's just an effect. I don't really care about it.
Yeah. The piece has to be has to be structured in the way you want it to be structured.
Exactly. Well, not even I want it to be structured, but I try to understand what the music material wants from me, because I don't think that we can control everything. There are a lot of things which come uncontrolled in the composition, and sometimes even like there is a certain melody appears, and we think that we make this melody, but where does it come from? This melody, I don't know either. Yeah. It's a kind of uncontrollable moments.
And you're talking about a melody which is in the notes.
Yes. Sometimes you just cannot. Sometimes it just appears, and then you just realize, there is a melody, but where does it come from? I don't know myself. Okay. But then there are some moments which you can control more or less, and then again something comes which is uncontrollable. So I like this combination of things which can be under control or not.
Yeah. Can you tell a bit about the musical material of the piece? It's called Severade, which has something to do with the Russian word for north, right?
Yeah. North and Serenade, together. So it's kind of calembour here. But the musical material is what I was searching in this piece. There was a huge breadth. So I somehow was searching for big waves. Like if you sail in the IJsselmeer, then you have little waves. But they are quite impressive already, but they can change quite fast. But then you go to the big sea, the waves become, it's really huge, and the ocean, when I see, I never been in the ocean, but I want to go, but when you see this huge, I don't want to be in there, but when you see this huge wave is coming, like, I don't know, like one wave is 20 seconds or something like this, it is, that's what I was searching for. So there I think you can hear in this music these huge waves, and then it calms down, and then again and again. So I was trying to create the shape where different materials are going into each other very smoothly. So, but at the same time they are different. But also some materials come back. but in a different shape as well. So I try to make it as smooth as possible. And it's not easy to perform for them, but they are doing it really good now. But at the beginning, I remember we had problems not just to play the notes which are there, but the connections between the sections. That was the main problem. But now they already understand how huge the wave should be and which place it takes in the piece, which meaning does it have. And for them, it of course becomes more easier to leave this time.
Yeah, it has to be.
Because sometimes there is nothing happening almost in the piece. Like the chord is frozen, and then these kind of music boxes, they start to sound a bit and just a little bit, and you don't know, like it's 1 or 2 minutes happening this stuff, and you become a little bit lost as a listener there. And from this feeling of being lost, the wave takes you somewhere else. And sometimes also when I was making climax, my idea was to make the climax which is going beyond the expectation of the listener. So there is a huge climax of 15 minutes, something like this, or even longer. And then the decay from the climax is around 10 minutes. It's a huge diminuendo with the whales, with the sound of whales there.
Yeah. How are those sounds made? But also by the cello players?
No, there is a tape.
Oh, there's a tape as well. Okay.
There is a tape there are 3 places with tape.
Okay, yeah. So it really, the piece is like a sea with big waves and calm moments, but it's one long flow, so to speak.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. It's kind of. I think it's kind of compressed life in a sense, or at least a long adventure, because you can hear different materials which are coming back sometimes, and some of them are changing so much that you cannot recognize them, and some of them stay almost unchangeable, like we see in our life as well. Some things are changing and some are staying the same.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting polyphony in our life, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. I think Todos los Fuegos was your previous piece with the 8 saxophones, was inspired by literature, by a book, right? Did you get any inspiration, so to speak, from real life experiences on the sea, sailing on the sea, or something like that? Or was it really the instrument and the thing that Rob built and working together which was inspiring for this composition?
I think mostly because I started to compose pieces when the instruments were not there yet at all. So the first half of the piece, not half, like 20 minutes of the piece, they don't use the instruments at all. And my idea was to put them into the music so slowly that you hardly notice that there are additional instruments. So my inspiration was more the music material by itself, because it's hard to say, because I think the inspiration is a complex thing which doesn't appear at one moment, because I think it's a collection of different things together, and a sailing it might be one of them as well. There are sometimes more direct examples of inspiration, like I had violin concerto I composed many years ago for 5 percussion players and 1 violin, and there I use white noise in between, because there are different materials, and I didn't know how to connect them. And then we went to France with the car, a friend of mine, and then she asked me to be busy with the radio, and the radio was not catching at one point. There was a lot of white noise in between. And then after that, a different music. So I thought that this is an interesting concept for the violin concerto. You have the white noise, and then suddenly different music. So that was an inspiration. It was clear, but here it's not so clear, because sometimes you go so deep into development of the material itself, the musical material, that you don't really care about other stuff. But I remember the feeling, because I hardly have some kind of visual examples in my life about the music. But with this one, I had the feeling that I'm like a free diver, the free divers which are going without any equipment, dive deep. And that was an interesting feeling, that I'm kind of going under the water very, very slowly and discovering different pressure on myself. And then suddenly there is a certain, I think I was thinking like, why are people doing this? But I think when they reach the bottom, they feel a certain freedom that they cannot reach any other point in their life. And they go back again and again because of that. So that kind of feeling I had, and I think this piece was kind of a gift to me, that like, because I was feeling a total freedom when I was composing it. It rarely happens when you compose music. Usually, you feel a little bit like you are in the cage, at least at some moments in the piece. But with this one, I never had it.
Yeah, yeah. So in fact, the composing process is something which really looks like, so to speak, how the piece in the end is sounding, how it has become. Even the process is a kind of wave, so to speak.
As well, yes.
Yeah.
Because this piece I composed almost the whole piece I composed with a straight line, like from the beginning till the end.
Yeah.
Well, not really true, but there were some moments which, of course, I put in, and then at the beginning appeared later, and so on. So there are some composition moments which came back. But at some pieces like Letters to Anne, I remember this bit, that was the disaster. That was a huge puzzle, and I composed it like in sections, and it was not clear what should be where. Mm-hmm. It was really painful piece to compose, just to compare. And this one was kind of a relief.
Yeah,
it happens sometimes in the composition process.
Yeah. Maybe just one more thing. In the explanation of the piece in the program, in the November Music program, and also I believe in the Dag de Branding program, it is referring to East and West in terms of musical material. Is that something which indeed is present in the piece, which you chose deliberately?
I don't know. I think it's something from the application to FPK. I don't really think about this. I don't think in these terms. No. I think I am sure that there is connection between East and West, because I was born in one culture and now I live in completely different culture. And I feel that culture which I lived in affected me, and now this culture, it affects me as well.
Yeah.
So there is a connection for sure. There is no doubt. But in which way, I don't know. But sometimes I think also that my music sounds like Japanese music, or even more than Ukrainian or Dutch. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I have some pieces which I honestly think that this music should be born in Japan.
Oh, really?
But at least I want to think like this.
Okay. Is that something to do with Zen Buddhism?
No, I just like Japan very much,
right.
and I like literature and films from them,
Yeah.
and history and visual art and everything.
Yeah.
So that's my passion, and I think it also does affect my music in a way, a bit. Yeah. But it doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. Because for the listener, when we listen, I think we don't even think about this kind of which culture does it come from. Of course, there are some very clear examples when the composer is quoting something or something like this. I'm making a piece now for Michel Moranc, which is called Capricios of the World. It's for the clarinet and electronic, and there is every movement is dedicated to a different country, and of course then you can think like, yeah, he's using the folk and so on, and then how I interpret it. But in this case, I think it doesn't really matter. It's just much more than this connection, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Recently, I saw the name of the movie about Matisse, which is about his latest girlfriend, Linda, I think. Oh, no, not Linda, maybe Linda, I don't remember. And this movie is called More Than Love Itself. I think like this is an interesting title, because this tells a lot about the person who is making the title, because maybe he doesn't know what love is. So I think it's an interesting things to consider. But for the listeners, I think the most important, at least for me, that they get an impression and they change, and music something change in their mind.
Yeah, the music is more than music itself.
Well, it depends also how you consider the music, because for me, music is the most important thing in life, more than literature, films, and religious, and everything. I think it's the unique key to peace in the world. But people still don't understand it, because they consider music mostly as an entertainment, which if also can be, but not only.
Yeah. Do you hope this piece will help to achieve this peace in the world? Would it be possible?
Oh, I don't have these ideas now. I don't think so. Yesterday we had concert in Leiden, and there were 50 people or something like this. I am not sure. No young people at all.
But if 50 people listen to your music and they get it, then they go home and they have a peaceful feeling.
That's true. Yes. No, but for a certain I truly believe that sometimes concerts. That's why I'm so serious about all concerts which I make, and every piece I make. That every concert there is a possibility that someone will come and it will change this person forever. I truly believe in it, and I had these moments in my life as well with other composers or filmmakers or whatever, and this art still stays in my heart. Although, for instance, like Tarkovsky, I was watching when I was 18, 17, and this movie I haven't watched for years, but it still stays in my heart.
Yeah,
and it does change me a lot.
Yeah, and the same can happen with music as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it does happen a lot as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Maxime.
Thank you.
Thank you very
It was
much.
nice talking.
Thank you.
Thank you.